Hello and welcome back to Talk to the Doctor. I'm your host, Emily Johnson, and today we're diving into a topic that affects every one of us as we age: bone health after 60. Did you know that after the age of 50, bone loss begins to outpace bone formation for most people? This increases the risk of fractures, especially in the hips, spine, and wrists. But here's the good news. There are steps you can take to keep your bones strong and resilient. In today's episode, Dr. David Miller will help us unpack what causes bones to weaken as we age, which nutrients play the biggest role in bone strength, daily habits that help or harm your bones, and simple lifestyle changes to protect your bones long term. Plus, we'll be answering 2 listener questions toward the end of the episode. So stick around. This is going to be a powerful one. Dr. Miller, thank you for joining us again.
Always a pleasure, Emily. And you're absolutely right. Bone health often doesn't get the attention it deserves until a fall or fracture occurs. So I'm glad we're talking about this today.
Let's start with the basics, Dr. Miller. Why do bones weaken as we get older, and what's actually happening inside our bodies?
That's a fantastic starting point, Emily. To understand why bones weaken with age, we need to look at how our bones constantly remodel themselves. Throughout life, bone tissue is in a dynamic state, constantly being broken down by cells called osteoclasts and rebuilt by cells called osteoblasts. This process is balanced during our younger years, especially through our 20s and 30s, when peak bone mass is achieved. However, after around age 50, and especially after menopause in women, this balance tips. Bone resorption, or breakdown, starts to outpace new bone formation. This leads to a gradual loss of bone density and structural integrity, increasing the risk of fractures. There are several reasons this happens. Hormonal changes, particularly the drop in estrogen in women and testosterone in men, play a big role. These hormones help regulate the bone remodeling process. When they decline, the bones become more fragile. Additionally, age-related factors like reduced physical activity, poor dietary habits, vitamin D deficiency, or even chronic inflammation can accelerate bone loss. Certain medications, such as corticosteroids, and conditions like rheumatoid arthritis or thyroid disorders also increase risk. Another issue is that as we get older, our absorption of calcium from food becomes less efficient, and we may not get enough sun exposure to synthesize adequate vitamin D, both of which are critical for maintaining bone mass. So it's not just getting older that weakens bones. It's a mix of biological, lifestyle, and nutritional factors that gradually tip the scale. The good news is, by understanding this process, we can take action to slow it down or even stabilize bone density. That's why staying active, eating well, and getting the right nutrients is so essential. We'll get into those details next.
Let's talk about nutrition now. What are the most important nutrients for bone health, and how can people make sure they're getting enough?
Excellent question, Emily, and one I get asked often. When it comes to bone health, the 2 nutrients that steal the spotlight are calcium and vitamin D, but they're just the beginning. Let's start with calcium. It's the primary mineral found in bones, and we need it daily to maintain strength and density. Adults over 60 should aim for about 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day. Great food sources include dairy products like milk, yogurt, and cheese, leafy greens such as kale and bok choy, and calcium-fortified products like plant-based milks and cereals. Then there's vitamin D, which helps the body absorb calcium. Without enough vitamin D, even a calcium-rich diet won't do much good. Older adults often need 800 to 1,000 IUs per day, especially since our skin becomes less efficient at producing vitamin D from sunlight with age. Fatty fish, fortified foods, and sensible sun exposure help, and sometimes supplements are necessary. Other important nutrients include magnesium, which supports calcium metabolism and bone structure, found in nuts, whole grains, legumes, and dark chocolate. Vitamin K2, which helps regulate calcium deposition in bones. Leafy greens are a great source. protein, which is essential for bone matrix integrity, and many older adults don't get enough, so aim for good quality sources like eggs, beans, fish, or poultry. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially from fatty fish or flaxseed, which may help reduce bone loss by lowering inflammation. It's also important to limit things that can rob bones of minerals, like excessive sodium, alcohol, and caffeine. These don't need to be eliminated completely, but they should be consumed in moderation. The bottom line is that a balanced, nutrient-rich diet with a focus on these bone-friendly foods can go a long way in preserving bone mass. And if someone is unsure they're getting enough of these nutrients, I always recommend speaking with a doctor or dietitian to consider testing or supplements tailored to their needs.
Outside of diet, what lifestyle habits can help strengthen bones or reduce bone loss?
That's a great follow-up, Emily, because diet alone isn't enough. Lifestyle plays a huge role in bone health too. Let's start with the most impactful habit: weight-bearing and resistance exercise. Activities like walking, hiking, dancing, tai chi, and strength training place stress on bones, which stimulates them to stay strong and dense. These don't have to be intense workouts. Even light weights, resistance bands, or bodyweight exercises a few times a week can yield real benefits. Balance and flexibility exercises are also essential, especially after 60, because they reduce the risk of falls, which are the main cause of fractures in older adults. Simple routines like stretching, yoga, or using a stability ball can improve posture and coordination. Another key factor is avoiding a sedentary lifestyle. Sitting for prolonged periods can weaken muscles and bones over time. I often suggest my patients set a timer to get up and move around every 30 to 60 minutes. Avoiding smoking and limiting alcohol intake is also vital. Smoking is associated with lower bone density, and alcohol, especially in excess, can interfere with calcium absorption and bone formation. Staying hydrated and maintaining a healthy weight can also support bone structure, as being underweight increases the risk of osteoporosis, while being overweight can stress joints and bones. Lastly, consider bone density testing, especially for postmenopausal women or men over 70. This gives a clear picture of where your bone health stands and whether medical treatment or supplements may be needed. When you combine smart nutrition with active living, bone health improves dramatically. It's about consistent small choices, moving more, eating wisely, and checking in with your healthcare provider.
You mentioned bone density testing earlier. Could you explain when and why someone should get a bone density scan and what the results actually tell us?
Absolutely. A bone density scan, also known as a DEXA scan, short for dual energy X-ray absorptometry, is a painless and non-invasive test that measures the density of your bones, typically in areas like the hips, spine, and sometimes the forearm. It's one of the most reliable tools we have to diagnose osteoporosis and assess the risk of fractures. I generally recommend that all women over 65 and men over 70 get a bone density scan at least once, sooner if they have risk factors such as a family history of osteoporosis, a history of smoking, long-term steroid use, or previous fractures from minimal trauma. Postmenopausal women with additional risk factors should also consider screening earlier. The results of the DEXA scan are expressed as a T-score and sometimes a Z-score. A T-score compares your bone density to that of a healthy young adult. A score above -1 is considered normal. Between -1 and -2.5 indicates osteopenia or low bone mass. A score below -2.5 signals osteoporosis. This gives us a clear picture of bone strength and helps guide decisions on prevention or treatment. For example, someone with a T-score of -2.0 might not need medication right away, but would benefit from targeted lifestyle changes, fall prevention strategies, and close monitoring. On the other hand, if someone has osteoporosis, medication like bisphosphonates or newer treatments like denosumab might be appropriate, alongside calcium, vitamin D, and exercise. The test usually takes only 10 to 15 minutes and requires no preparation, and it can provide crucial insight into your overall bone health and help prevent future fractures.
Are there any common misconceptions or mistakes people make when it comes to bone health that you think we should clear up?
Oh yes, definitely. One of the biggest misconceptions is that osteoporosis is only a women's issue. While it's true that women, especially postmenopausal women, are at higher risk, men are not immune. In fact, 1 in 5 men over the age of 50 will break a bone due to osteoporosis, so bone health is a concern for all older adults. Another common mistake is assuming that calcium supplements alone are enough to protect your bones. Many people load up on calcium, but forget about vitamin D, which is essential for calcium absorption. And even beyond that, as we discussed earlier, bone strength depends on a combination of nutrients, weight-bearing activity, and hormone health. There's also the belief that once you're diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, there's nothing you can do. That's simply not true. Lifestyle changes, exercise, nutrition, and medications when appropriate can significantly improve bone strength and reduce the risk of fractures. I've also seen people shy away from strength training out of fear that it's too risky or might cause injury. In reality, when done properly, especially under the guidance of a physical therapist or fitness professional, resistance exercises can dramatically improve bone health, balance, and overall function. Lastly, many older adults don't realize how dangerous falls are when bone strength is compromised. Something as simple as a slip in the bathroom can lead to a life-changing hip fracture. So it's critical to also focus on fall prevention, things like removing trip hazards, improving lighting at home, using assistive devices if needed, and working on balance and mobility. In short, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but there are also many things we can do to stay proactive. Don't wait for a fracture to start caring about your bones. The earlier you start, the better your outcomes will be.
Let's now turn to our audience. This first question comes from Rachel in Denver. She asks, I'm 67 and recently diagnosed with osteopenia. My doctor didn't prescribe any medication yet. Should I be worried or doing more to stop it from progressing?
That's a fantastic question, Rachel, and one that I hear quite a bit. First off, osteopenia means that your bone density is lower than normal, but not low enough to be considered osteoporosis. It's a warning sign, and it's great that you've caught it early. The good news is that this is a phase where you can absolutely take action and potentially prevent things from progressing. The key is to focus on all the foundational aspects we've talked about: calcium and vitamin D intake, strength training, weight-bearing activity, and avoiding smoking and excessive alcohol. Many doctors won't prescribe medication for osteopenia right away because we want to see if lifestyle changes can stabilize or even improve bone density. It's also important to assess your individual fracture risk using something called a FRAX tool, which considers factors like age, sex, weight, smoking history, and previous fractures. If your risk is high, even with osteopenia, your doctor might still recommend medication. So, no, you don't need to panic, but yes, it's the right time to get serious about bone-friendly habits. And make sure you're being reevaluated every couple of years to track progress. Bone health is dynamic, and what you do now can make a big difference.
Our second question comes from Mark in Pennsylvania. He writes, I've heard some people say that too much calcium can actually be harmful. Is there such a thing as too much? And how do I know I'm not overdoing it?
Excellent question, Mark. Yes, while calcium is essential for bone health, there is such a thing as too much. The recommended daily intake for older adults is about 1,200 milligrams per day. Going significantly beyond that, especially through supplements, can pose risks. Excessive calcium intake has been linked in some studies to kidney stones and may even contribute to cardiovascular issues, particularly if calcium builds up in the arteries. Most experts agree that it's best to get as much calcium as possible from food sources and use supplements only when needed. Here's what I recommend. Add up the calcium from your diet and supplements, and if you're getting more than 2,000 milligrams per day regularly, it's worth reevaluating.
Most people can meet their needs through dairy products, leafy greens, fortified foods, and moderate supplementation. Also, don't forget about the importance of magnesium, vitamin D, and vitamin K. They help regulate how calcium is used in the body. It's not just about how much calcium you take in, but how well your body handles it. If you're unsure, ask your healthcare provider to help assess your intake and determine whether supplementation is needed and how much.
That wraps up another insightful episode of Talk to the Doctor. Dr. Miller, thank you so much for breaking down this important topic.
My pleasure, Emily. If our listeners take even a few of these tips to heart, they'll be well on their way to stronger, healthier bones.
And to our audience, thank you for spending time with us today. If you found this helpful, don't forget to follow, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend or loved one. You can also send in your health questions to be featured in a future episode. Until next time, stay active, stay nourished, and take good care of those bones.